So you want me to?
No, you'd be crying.
Once a girl grew up loving horses. She had never seen a real horse, however. The horses she saw on TV and photos took her breath away. Wow, she thought, and said, when seeing drawings and movies, photos from the magazines and books about horses, the horses made her think about other wonderful spectacles in the world. However, the horses was top of the line, and she drew lots of them.
That is true. She was just so artistic, and her brain just worked different from ours, and she just saw things in different ways. And
well, yeah, I mean, you sit out in the yard and she'd look in the sky, and you could tell in her brain she was trying to recreate it.
She had a great a technique drawing-wise. She could really draw anything she wanted. Plus she had that archaeological background that gave her access to a certain iconography that informs all her work.
She kind of almost had her own language with her calligraphy, so to speak, on her pieces. And you could almost tell, oh, Dina did that on most of them just by her marks.
To me, it's almost both ancient and futuristic at the same time. But Dina was someone who loved connecting with people and having people get together. And I think she represented that idea of community or connection over and over again in her pottery.
So the connection between beasts and humans was very, very present. And a lot of pieces where humans are sort of admiring the animal, sort of looking up to and loving, and just a real connection between animals and humans and sort of the spirit world.
And she just really had a thing with kind of creating her own beasts that were always warm and gentle and playful. I feel like her work did have a really great sense of play in it, and she was dedicated to her craft like nobody I know.
I just hope that people give her all the credit she deserves. She's a really outstanding artist.
I've always drawn since I was just a child, always, but it was not, it was not stressed in my family as something that was good enough to pursue as a career. It was like, well, you can always do that in your spare time. So I got an archaeology degree out in New Mexico. That's where I met my husband. He was also in the same field school from Wake Forest University.
I went to Wake Forest. I was sort of lucky to get in. It was a difficult school, but I was happy to make the grade. And when I went out to Taos, New Mexico for this archaeology field school into my sophomore year, I had a really rough day, and when I arrived, I heard this beautiful voice call down to me from a second floor of a chalet, and it said, "Hi, Mark." And I didn't know who this was, and I looked up. This beautiful, beautiful young lady knew I was there, and years later, I found the story that Dina wrote about it, and I'll read this to you because I love it. Once we were just learning each other. We both liked what we learned. We both took the liking up further, and liking turned into love. Oh wow, I think we both liked that happening. We both had happiness and awe of finding this new feeling. Travel out west was the clincher. I knew you were coming to New Mexico. Taos, where I was waiting. You hitched rides to arrive. You liked me, and I was already in love with you in Taos. And it was an amazing experience. Taos is out west, wide open. It was in the early 70s, and I was free. We were both free and in love.
I have thought so much about why I went into that field, because I am totally not a scientist. And I thought that maybe I could become one, but I soon realized that I really liked archaeology just because of the artifacts. You know, that's what I liked. I liked the objects because they were so beautiful and just amazing things that you would dig up and see.
I think she just wanted to emulate that, and that's how she moved into art, and particularly clay, because clay is the oldest art form, and certainly is very expressive.
I remember her saying that as soon as she found clay, it was like, this is all I want to do, you know. And I think that all the endless possibilities were really what she enjoyed about it. Was, I mean, you could make anything.
I was making stuff and going to little pottery classes and painting, you know, in my bedroom.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I gotta do something. And I really like this, and why can't I be an artist? You know, what's wrong with that? So I went back to art school, and I actually got an art education degree, and I got a studio concentration in ceramics. So I was going to teach, and I did my student teaching, and that cured me. But I did think, well, gosh, I could teach pottery. That's something I could do. So that's what I did after moving to London.
Just happened that a teaching position opened up with the college, and it was continuing ed with a fellow named Hiroshi Seiwoshi, potter, and they began teaching, and eventually it became Orange Street, and it was a bastion for potters developing and learning the trade.
I really enjoy teaching at Orange Street Pottery. One of the great things about it is the nostalgia of teaching here. I moved down here in 1995, and for a few years I was struggling to find a place to make art. So I called around and I met Hiroshi and saw what he did, and I got hooked. And at the same time, we were so lucky to have Dina Wilde-Ramsing teaching here as well.
So I got to know Dina as a teacher in the early 80s, and she was wonderful, and I feel like we connected right away, as was true of so many people with Dina. She was a wonderful teacher and very empathetic too. If you were centering clay on the wheel and it started to get wobbly, she would hop in there and help to get it back on center.
Because she was more of a hand builder, I felt like I learned so much more from her on the wheel, surprisingly, than any other teacher I've had. And so she taught me hand building techniques and really encouraged me to do both. And I feel like it made me a more rounded potter.
She was a wonderful teacher, and the raku parties that we had in the backyard were historic. We smoked up the neighborhood twice a year.
The raku firings at her house, she and Mark shared their home, and we would get the classes together.
Raku is you put the pots in with the glaze on it, and you fire it up really quickly to a certain temperature. You shut it off, yank it out really hot out of the kiln with tongs and big gloves.
Yeah.
And then you put it into a combustible material. It just smokes, of course, everything catches fire.
So we had a big raku kiln in our backyard, and her friends would come over, and my dad's friends, and it would just be like a big party.
Yeah, she invited me to her raku parties, and she turned me on to clay, and I was more here as a friend and with my daughter, and but eventually I kind of get sucked into it. And every time you hang out with Dina, she gave you a piece of clay and you start making things. And that's how it started. And that was like 30 some years ago. So.
It was just a wonderful family event. You know, everybody felt very connected in that way.
A year after we got to Wilmington, we decided to start our family and had Joseph in 1978, and then we had our daughter Key, and so we had 2 children. And I think it was just wonderful. I loved being a father, and I know Dinah loved being a mother, and they were always in the pottery studio and around and making things.
We always had a creative outlet there. She was always, of course, in the studio, and she would always let us come in and make stuff, make clay, and get on the wheel. And
I mean, we played. You know, she had the wheel outside, the potter's wheel, the kick wheel, and so that was, we used to drive the bus, and I mean, it was just such a part of life.
She was also a very, I would also say, very, loving mother, but also in the sense of just lots of hugs and lots of touches and lots of kissing from her. So that was, just something that always, of course, as a kid, made you feel good and made you feel loved.
It's amazing to have her as a mother, you know. I mean, it's just a kind and unconditionally loving person, you know. It's like I grew up feeling like there's nothing I could ever do, you know, that would turn her off from how she feels about me. And I don't know, it's pretty amazing.
Well, Dinah's career in pottery was marked by a lot of, to me, some real watershed moments. I particularly like Piney Woods. It was over in what is now Longleaf Park. It was her first show of taking her pottery out and exhibiting it. I know that first year it rained. We didn't have any canopy or anything, and we taped up plastic, and it was a wet affair, but it was a lot of fun. I think she won first in show at that event. So we always had a good time doing that. She was in some good shows and did others around the country. I loved going with shows to Dinah because she was always nervous about it, but once it started and people just would rush into the booth, be the first ones there. I can remember several people, they would put their hand on one piece and hold that and looking at all the others to see if there's any others they wanted.
So we'd go and we'd sit there and sometimes help at the stand selling pottery, and it was just a really nice sort of creative atmosphere too to grow up in. And I know that it was just so important for her for people to have art and to experience art.
Dina was very self-effacing, a really caring person, and I think very grounded, but with a spiritual side too, and all that came out in her work.
It's quiet, figurative poses that tell a story, but in a quiet way.
I mean, just the expressions on their faces it always struck me, but none of them, like, they weren't really happy, you know? They were always like just kind of lost in thought or contemplative, I guess, you know, just some serious thought going on, and not necessarily happy thoughts, you know, but like really trying to figure out life.
So this is a platter that I got many years ago. In fact, the date on this is 1987. I remember Dinah coming over and she saw the platter and she showed me how she had written on the side, "One spinning heart sends 10,000 thoughts a day. She just was thinking about how many thoughts came into her mind while she was doing the pottery.
You know, it's really easy to get in a rut because you work with things and you learn how to do it. No surprise, none of those wonderful kiln surprises, which, by the way, is one of the best things with being a potter, is that sometimes that kiln will just give you gifts like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, you know? And you didn't plan on it, and it's like, wow. I miss that, so I think I need to do something.
And I think of all the things that carried me through, in addition to love and everything, was the fact that she was always searching and thinking and not just taking things for granted. Dementia for us, and obviously particularly for Dinah, was the toughest thing we had to deal with. And I think it came into being, or into possibility, obviously, when Dinah's mother started getting memory problems, and there was a lot of denial and, oh, come on, mama, and then it turned into full-scale dementia, and she was here for the last 3 years of her life. And I have a little poem that Dinah wrote in 1995, which is a few years before she passed away. I let my mother smoke. I subject her to Beethoven. She holds my hand and tells me it is beautiful music. I let myself believe she means it. We speed through the dark in our silence. Stunning sounds blasting us. My joy and sadness are crushing me.
It's devastating.
It is
It's a devastating disease to
Yes.
everybody that's in
And it lasts forever.
Yeah. It was eye-opening, dealing with my mom and then Dinah, and
The progression.
Dementia is far more than just memory loss, okay? It's a whole cognitive wheel of processes, and it's constant change. Every moment is a new moment. So it's a very difficult journey, and for a caregiver, it's a 24/7 job with no breaks, unless you can really kind of network that support system, and that's really what Mark did.
Personally, I was a friend and a student of Dinah's in her pottery shop. And subsequently, like many of her other students, we remained friends. And then, as she was diagnosed with dementia, she said, but I still want to continue to do art. And I recommended that we now have a memory care program here at Lower Cape Fear, Life Care, and suggested to Mark that he contact Andy to find about resources and support that he could get while he was caregiving for his wife.
She continued on to work, and until about 2012. The last pottery was in 2016. But then her drawing that she had done when she was young and continued on, kicked in, and she would draw 10, 12 pictures a day, and all of them in the beginning were very fantasyful and wonderful, similar to her pottery, and then it just became mostly horses.
And so I would sit with her, and we would draw horses and color them, and I put myself in her world, because I think that's what you have to do. You have to live in their world. And I got into Dinah's world, and she got into mine. Dinah was easy to fall in love with. She always had a kiss for me first thing in the morning. I was telling Mark that, to me, that was the most special thing about Dinah when I would come to work. To me, it was like my mother, when I had moved down here years ago, my mother was dying of cancer, and I was not able to be up there to help take care of her. And that was always a guilty part of my heart. And so I always said to myself, well, I will give the love to somebody else that I can still help. And Dinah was just my baby girl.
Dinah had struggles, but she loved to the very end. She was affectionate and appreciated all we were doing for her. I felt strongly that Dinah's impact on the community and her friends and in the art world was significant, and I, as her main guy, I guess, supporter, I just felt like I'd see what kind of opportunities to continue that or recognize that. A couple ways. One is through creative art room that we linked up with I Am Heard. It's a Mustang sanctuary, and it's just developed into the most wonderful scenario. The classroom's been built. It's a sanctuary. Dinah loves sanctuaries, and she loved horses. There's 25 horses out there, and the clay, it adds to their offerings and venue. When they talk about the horses, they can hand out clay.
This is I Am Heard Mustang Sanctuary, and the classroom that we're in was inspired by Dina Wilde-Ramsing. We are a Mustang sanctuary, so we're a safe place for ponies and horses that have been rescued. Many of them were born in the wilds, and now, thanks to Dina, we're also going to be doing outreach programs that involve clay. And there's nothing like being immersed in the sanctuary, surrounded by the horses and the goats and the ponies, and then getting your hands muddy and creating. It's just such a beautiful way to really connect with the earth and connect with who we are truly inside. So to be able to now have this space that has her spirit so much in it, be surrounded by the horses, just feels like such a gift.
The Clay Buddies is a group that formed just about the end of Dinah's clay career. She was not making much, but our good friend Arrow Ross was really wanting some extra instruction and knew that Dinah was around, and a couple other friends, Helene Eichard and Denise Shackelford and others came in, and so we started making, and Dinah would be just sort of keeping an eye on us, and often she'd say, don't do that in the early years, and then she was just drawing and around, and it was here in this room. It's now an apartment, but it was our Dinah studio.
We usually get together once a week, and we do clay. And it's very fun because it's inspiring to be with other people doing clay, and you learn from each other and get ideas. And it's been really fun for all of us, I think.
It brings me to Dinah and gives me so much pleasure to just calming pleasure to remember her and remember things she taught me and being able to express myself. When I met Dinah, I was a mess, like most young men, and she just appeared in my life. I wasn't expecting it, and it sort of anchored me down and settled me down and gave me purpose. And one thing that I really loved about Dinah was her non-judgmental look at life. She didn't find fault with anybody. She accepted people. Occasionally some there might be somebody who really did something bad, but she was open and aware, and it showed up in her friendship. And we had lots of good, dear friends, and her teaching just brought people in and gave them strength and support.
She always pushed me beyond my limits. When we would, in the way my thinking, and because I'm a much more conservative thinker than she was, and she would.
Yeah.
She was very nice about it, but she would, try to make me see that there's
Other sides.
other sides to everything.
Yeah.
That's true.
She just had this way of saying, yeah, but try to understand where they're coming from, or try to understand what's happening here or there. And so just this sort of loving and compassionate and accepting, I would say, way about her. And I think she really inspired me in a lot of ways to choose the professional field that I've chosen, which is in human rights and trying to protect human rights around the world.
Dina was just such a beautiful person. She was so giving and honest and kind and loving. If you needed her to help you out, she would be there.
Just to know Dina was amazing to me. She was just one of those people you could not resist falling in love with.
Dina will be remembered by folks, certainly folks that have met her, and you've seen the outpouring, and I've seen the outpouring for years and years, and then obviously especially in the latter years when she was failing, and now since she's passed away, she reached a lot of people, and I think so as long as their memory of her continues, then her impact will continue. But the other part is in the art, and these pieces will be there. Maybe somebody will excavate them in 1,000 years, and they will marvel at this, like Dina marveled at so many pieces she saw. And I think that's the amazing and wonderful continuity that it's Dina's memory and her impact on the world. It's wonderful.
On the horse-filled platter I have at home, you wrote, "One spinning heart sends 10,000 thoughts a day." Now it's our thoughts traveling in a spinning whirl around you, Dina, with love and affection for the unique, caring, creative being we have known and who will remain forever in our hearts.
Instead of